So what's going on, guys? We are on a very exciting episode. This is the episode where we actually take the engine out and install it for the very last time. Well, hopefully, given that nothing's going to be wrong with it. But yeah, so the plan is to drop the engine down, do some things to it, then we have to rebuild the transmission. We're going to respray the engine bay. I'm probably going to cut the top of the firewall because there's a dent right there, right below the VIN number. But the Miatas look really good with the top of the firewall removed anyways. And then we're going to reinstall everything. I don't think we're going to get around to starting it this episode, but it'll be really, really close. So let's go ahead and show you guys what we got going on over here. Okay, for starters, I have some BTR hardened push rods. They are the regular length, but just hardened. And then moving along, if I could get this box closed. Moving right along, we have a set of valve springs from Comp that will support the lift of the new camshaft. So we open this box, we have our brand new camshaft right here. And coming up top, we have a high pressure, high volume oil pump. We have a little gasket for that side cover on the side of the oil pan. We have some new oil pump pickup O-rings. And then we have a high pressure O-ring for the power steering pump. We have some intake manifold hardware, water pump gaskets, a new drain plug for the oil pan, and I'm going to have to drill and tap the oil pan because from where I cut it out, I cut out that section, so yeah, I need to do that. Have a new thermostat. We have some exhaust manifold gaskets and some EGR gaskets, but I haven't decided if I'm going to weld the holes closed or build a block-off plate, so we'll see what happens when the time comes. And last but not least, we have the oil pan gasket. So we have a lot of stuff ahead of us, but let's go ahead and get it done. I got this thing down to a long block and it's pretty disgusting. So it has grease all over the place, so what I'm going to do is drop it down on a crate, push it outside, pressure wash it, try to get all the grease off, then throw a fresh coat of paint on it. So yeah, I have all the accessories lined up over here, ready to go back on whenever this thing's ready. But yeah, when it's down on the ground, I'll go ahead and do the oil pan, cam, valve springs, all that greatness, and we'll slide it back together. So here we go. have the rockers out, I have the timing chain off, I have the oil pump off, and I also have the camshaft out of the engine. All the journals actually look fairly good. However, I'm going to follow Matt Happel's advice by not even bother looking at the cam bearings because they're going to end up being bad. So this is coming from a guy that makes 700 horsepower on a stock bottom end on these things. So yeah, he's a reliable source. But I'm going to go ahead and slap some assembly lube on the new camshaft and slap it back in the engine, and we're just going to send it. So let's see what happens. Mr. Wop Wop is almost ready to go yeeting. So the oil pump's on, the valve springs and push rods are in, the cam's inside, and I got it all sprayed, and holy crap, what a difference. I pressure washed it and sprayed it. I also did the valley cover, I did the front timing cover. I also did the oil pan, and I told one of you guys that commented that I'd go over this thing real quick. So I cut off 2 inches. This was originally a truck pan. I cut off 2 inches from it and cut out this aluminum plate, and then got it re-welded in. It's welded on the inside and outside, and then I tapped it for the oil drain right there. And then for the oil level sensor, I just have a plug over there. So it's super low profile. It's identical to an F-body pan. So that's pretty much that. And then for the valve covers, I have these with the wrinkle paint. Came out really good. So yeah, I'm chugging away at it, and I have like 3 hours before work, so I still haven't slept, but oh well. I'm gonna continue along. Okay, moving right along. I'm about ready to put the engine back up inside the car. However, I had a broken stud right here and right here on the cylinder head. So I was able to get them out. There they are right there. And then I have one on the other side that I could show you guys real quick. So if we look right here, we can see that it's broken off inside the head. So what I do is I take a nut, I line it up right there, I weld the inside of it completely, and then I let the heat do the work and we extract it. So let me go ahead and get this thing welded, and we can take it out together. You can see that the nut is glowing pretty red. So I'm going to let this cool off for a little bit so the heat can actually transfer into the head and free up whatever's holding it in. And then I usually don't blast these things off with an impact gun just because the shock from it usually breaks the weld. So I'm just going to end up using just a regular wrench like this, and we'll go ahead and give it a shot, see what happens. There it goes. and usually it doesn't damage the threads at all. So yeah, I'll just clean up the outside of it right here, and the exhaust manifold should go on perfect. So here we go.
Sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah. Get a feeling that I never had before. No, I get a good feeling, yeah.
So I got the transmission all torn apart, well, as far down as I need to go to replace the damaged components, and here we are. So starting at the input shaft, it's missing a couple of teeth right there, and I found them in the bottom of the case. So what I'm assuming happened is these pieces dropped down in here and damaged this gear because it has a couple of rough nicks on it. So I went ahead and bought a new cluster gear, new input shaft, and then tearing it apart, I damaged these washers. These things hold the needle bearings in place inside the cluster gear. And then I damaged this thrust washer, as you can see it's bent. And then I also damaged the input shaft bearing because I loaded it into the press wrong. So totally my fault, but this guy still spins fine and I'm pretty sure I could get away with it, but I'm just not going to risk it. I'm going to get a new one instead. I'd rather be safe than sorry because you have to tear apart the whole transmission in order to replace the input shaft bearing anyways. And then last but not least, I'm going to get a new set of gaskets for it because I don't want the thing leaking. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up on the trans, and let me go ahead and get these parts ordered and I'll pick you guys back up in a couple days. But for the meantime, we'll get started on something else. So the couple of days went by and the parts came for the transmission. So we have a gasket set right here, we have some assembly lube, we have a input shaft bearing, and also a small parts kit which contains everything needed to be able to rebuild this guy. So we have some washers, some bearings, some springs, some new detent balls, some C-clips, some new roller bearings. I have both sizes right there. So yeah, essentially that should be good enough to get this thing back together. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a fresh coat of paint on the case and get to work. have the transmission all built. I'm sorry you guys missed the last section of the video, but my phone had actually ran out of memory and it closed it down kind of early. But yeah, it's built, so let's go ahead and run through the gears. So I'm going to start out with reverse, which is this lever right here. I don't know if I can get it. It's really hard with one hand. There we go. So I'm going to rotate it towards me, and the output shaft should actually go towards the opposite direction. So there we go. As you can see, it's going towards the opposite direction. And then we'll go to first gear. Which is going to be this lever right here. There's that. There's first. Oh, that went to fourth. There's second. Rotate it. Where it turns. Come up to third. Fourth works. And down to fourth. Which fourth works. So it works on the ground, but yeah, I'm only a fraction of what it's going to see sitting behind 460 horse. So yeah, let's start in the car and see what it does. I have the top of the firewall cut out and removed, and I have it stitch welded all the way across, so all I have to do is grind down these welds and it should be rock solid after that. But the main reason why I cut it out is because this dent right here would drive me absolutely crazy. So I just eliminated the problem altogether, and every single Miata that I've seen with the top of the firewall removed like this actually looked really, really good. So hopefully mine turns out the same way. But for now, all I have to do is add a plate right here on the back side just to cap off the holes, kind of like how I did the heater core and the cruise control. And then I'll clean off all the crap right here on the engine bay, Scotch Brite it, wipe it down, remove the wiper assembly, all that stuff, and get a fresh coat of paint on it. So let's get it. I have the engine bay cleaned up and painted, and it came out really, really good. So I'm pretty happy with it. The next thing is I'm going to take the masking paper off from the bottom of the subframe. Also remove the bags from the top, just covering up the windshield. And then I'll go ahead and grab the engine and transmission, bring it over here, do the clutch on it, and get them together to put back inside the car. So once it's back inside the car, we can start doing everything else, like the water pump, the power steering, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it came out, so let's go ahead and get that other stuff done. pretty much done. I have to put the exhaust manifolds on each side, but I'm not going to do that right now because I want to put the exhaust wrap on them first. And then I have to do small things like hose clamps everywhere. I have to do the clutch hydraulics. I have to find a brake line that comes off the master cylinder to the left front. And then we can get started on suspension work. So I got the coilovers to do. I have some steering angle stuff to do. And then we can start working our way towards the back of the car, just doing a nut and bolt check all the way around and hopefully fire it up next episode. So I'll see you guys then.